The Kings are on the verge of punching their playoff ticket. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. Also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Use Sleeper's terms of use for details. Well, the Kings played game 77 of the 82-game regular season schedule, hosting the top team in the Pacific Division, the Vancouver Canucks, on Saturday night in what will be the team's biggest test, the LA Kings' biggest test before the playoffs. Now, the big news going into this game was the return of veteran center Phillip Danault to the Kings lineup. He had missed the last 4 games with an upper body injury. As for the lineup for the Kings, Danault's return meant that LA moved away from that 11-7 setup, the 11 forwards and 7 defensemen that they have used for the majority of games over the past few weeks, and back to the more traditional 12-6 setup, 12 forwards and 6 defensemen. We had the return of the nice line, Victor Arvidsson, with Danault and Trevor Moore on that second line. P.L. Dubois dropped back down to the third center role, which he has had for most of the season, but he was on the second line with Danault out. PL was joined by Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere. The fourth line center by Blake Lizotte with Trevor Lewis and Akil Thomas would stay in the lineup. Cam Talbot would be in net. If you missed the game, here's a quick recap. Kings jumped out to a 2-0 lead on a pair of power play goals in the first period within the first 6 minutes of the opening period. First, Adrian Kempe gets his 26th of the season. Andre Kopitar and Drew Doughty with the assists. Then Doughty scored his 15th of the season. Victor Arvidsson and Adrian Kempe assisting, again, 2 power play goals in the first period for LA. Now, Vancouver did get on the board to make it 2-1, and that's where we would stand after the opening period. Second period, Kings would add to their lead with a pair of goals. First, Alex Laferriere deflecting in a Jordan Spence point shot. For Laferriere, the 12th of his rookie season here with the Kings. Spence, obviously, one of the assists, Kevin Fiala, the other. And then Fiala would light the lamp with his 27th of the season. Andre Kopitar and Mikey Anderson with the assists. In the third period, 2 teams would trade goals. Canucks cut it to 4-2 before Trevor Moore scored his 30th of the season. Phillip Danault assisting after Vancouver had cut it to 5-3. Adrian Kempe would put the game away with a shorthanded goal in the closing moments, his second of the game and 27th of the season, unassisted. And the Kings skate off with a 6-3 win, their third win in a row, improving to 41, 25, and 11 on the year. 11-2-1 at home since the All-Star break. Remember, there didn't seem like that long ago the Kings were not great on home ice, but lately they have been, which is nice. Kings could clinch a playoff spot as soon as tomorrow. We will give you the details on that coming up. But wrapping up the big win over Vancouver with the stats of the game. Again, LA wins at 6-3. Shots on goal favored Vancouver 42-29, but the Kings obviously converting on their power play chances. As for the power plays, LA was 2 for 4, while Vancouver went 0 for 3. Faceoffs favored the Kings 28-26. Block shots favored LA 22-5. And hits favored Vancouver 26-18. A very fun game. I was out there at Crypto.com Arena for this one. A high-energy game, playoff-like atmosphere. I thought the crowd was really into it from the start, and obviously getting a couple of early power play goals. And scoring 6 goals obviously is going to keep your fans excited and happy and into the game, and beating one of the top teams in the NHL and the top team in the Pacific Division, always fun as well. So one word to describe the win by the Kings over the Canucks, I'm going to go with hopeful. The definition of hopeful: feeling or inspiring optimism about a future event. Of course, that future event is the playoffs. And I think we are all hopeful. A lot of the things we saw in the game on Saturday, the win over the Canucks, is something we're going to see more of in the playoffs. As for the 3 stars of this game, obviously a lot of guys contributing, but I'm going to go with Cam Talbot as my number 3 star. The Kings netminder allowed 3 goals on 42 shots, a season high 39 saves in this one, and he had several big saves. And the 3 goals he allowed, not really soft goals. First goal, Pierre-Luc Dubois broke his stick and couldn't play defense on Brock Besser, an elite goal scorer, and he took advantage. Second goal, he did make the initial save, but Vancouver was able to put in the rebound. And then the third goal, Drew Doughty actually made a nice hustle play. He was sliding on his stomach, trying to take away the pass, and then the pass came kind of behind his feet. He stretched out his stick, and he got a piece of it, but the deflection of the pass actually kind of worked against the Kings. I think Talbot was already moving from his right to his left, anticipating the pass, and then when it got deflected, he couldn't really recover and get back on his angle, and the Canucks were able to score. But I thought Talbot still had a very strong game, improves to 25, 18, and 6 on the season, and now has won 6 of his last 8 starts. Is no question that if he's healthy, Cam Talbot is the number 1 goalie going into the playoffs for the LA Kings. He's my number 3 star. My number 2 star is defenseman Drew Doughty with a goal and an assist, played 25 minutes, which is typical for him. He's actually just 1 goal away from tying his career high for goals in a season, which has gone kind of unnoticed a bit. He had 16 in his second year in the league. That was back in 2009-10. He's got 15 now, and still a rock back there on the back end, again, playing 25 minutes, usually more a night. So Drew Doughty's my number 2 star. My number 1 star, probably not a surprise, Adrian Kempe with 2 goals and an assist. First goal was a perfect shot off the left post and in. Vancouver giving him too much time and space to pick his spot on the power play, and he took advantage. Second goal was the shorthanded goal to seal it. Really smart play by Juice to recognize that Vancouver defender Quinn Hughes was gassed, and instead of just clearing the puck down the ice trying to kill the penalty, he took it past him, got body position on him. The only option Hughes had was to take a penalty and haul Kempe down. He hoped his goalie Casey DeSmith could make a save. He couldn't. Kempe finishes it off, puts in the dagger. He's, again, one of the best finishers on the Kings, and even though his goal numbers are down a bit, still a deadly finisher when given the opportunity. Kempe now has 4 goals in his last 5 games this month, also adding to his career high in points in a season, now 71 and counting. A hot Adrian Kempe going into the playoffs would be a very good thing for the LA Kings. Hopefully, he can keep it going. As far as the pluses, the positive takeaways from this game, I think the biggest thing for me was the special teams. You get 2 power play goals on your first 2 opportunities. That was big. Even though the Kings are still not really winning faceoffs on the power play, I thought they did a very good job in this one of doing something they've had some trouble with the man advantage. And that is getting the power play set up quickly. Even when they had to go back and get the puck after it was cleared, they got it in the zone quickly, and then they set it up quickly. And that was something I think helped contribute to the success they had on the power play. And they won the special teams battle. We were concerned a little bit about the penalty kill not long ago. Seems like it's back on track as they killed off all of the shorthanded opportunities that they had against. And again, 3 for 3 on the penalty kill. So the special teams battle definitely going to the Kings. And if they're going to have success in the playoffs, they're going to need to win those special teams battles more often than not. I thought the Kings were very solid defensively as a team all the way around. And it was great to see the defense also being active offensively. You had the Drew Doughty goal. Jordan Spence had that big point shot that was deflected in. Matt Roy almost had a beautiful goal, and Adrian Kempe-like move to the net where he almost scored. So good to see the defense chipping in as well. Another thing we're going to need to see in the playoffs if the Kings are going to have success, not just about the defense playing good D, but also contributing offensively as well. As far as some minuses, some negative takeaways, not really many. As good as the Kings were on special teams, they actually could have been better. They had a 5-on-3 opportunity that they didn't really do much with, and they did give up a shorthanded goal. I know that was something that head coach Jim Hiller pointed afterwards that he was not real happy about that. But and the faceoffs to me still feels like an issue. I know they did win the total faceoff battle, but it seems like on special teams, when they're shorthanded and when they're on the power play, they always seem to lose that first faceoff. And they're great on the penalty kill. Imagine how good they would be if they actually won more of those faceoffs. I'll have to look into the stats and see exactly if we can see what the percentage is as far as special teams faceoffs, but it seems to me just kind of the eyeball test, something the Kings could improve on and hopefully will improve on as we get into the playoffs. Coming up next, we're going to talk about how Phillip Danault looked in his return and also what his return means to the Kings lineup. That and more here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. We are in the stretch run of the NHL season. The Kings are looking for that playoff push, but regardless of where the Kings are on the standings, you could win big playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick a player or players and predict if they will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. And it's not just the NHL. You could also play fantasy with the NBA as well. But you could win 100 times your bet on Sleeper if you correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. You heard me right, Kings fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availabilities. So the Kings have 5 games left in the regular season. As for this week, LA is on the road Tuesday in Anaheim, their final road game of the season. They can clinch a playoff spot if they win that game. They will be at home on Thursday against the Calgary Flames and then back at home on Saturday in a rematch against the Anaheim Ducks. Those are the 3 games for the Kings this week. And again, on Tuesday would be sweet to go down into Anaheim, go down and get a win in the pond, where the Kings have obviously been very successful against the Ducks overall. Get those 2 points, wrap up a playoff spot, and punch that playoff ticket, which is what it's all about. Going to be interesting to see how much 36-year-old goalie Cam Talbot plays the rest of the season. He has started 3 of the last 4 games and 7 of the last 10 for the Kings. I've said that if I were Jim Hiller and goalie coach Mike Buckley, I would go to Cam and tell him, look, we want to make sure that you get any rest that you need. We also, though, want to keep you sharp. So tell us what you want to do in these final 5 games. The playoffs are expected to start next Saturday. So a week from this Saturday. Now, that doesn't mean the Kings are necessarily playing on that day or not. The schedules have not been released. But yeah, for Cam Talbot, if he doesn't play in that regular season finale against Chicago on Thursday, then he would have at least 5 days off between starts. So would he feel better playing in that season finale, maybe getting rest in the game before? Again, up to him. Talk to him, see what he's comfortable with. Certainly expect to see David Riddick at some point in these final 5 games. Maybe he plays 2 of the final 5 games. But like I said, I go to Cam Talbot. I want him to let me know, how is he feeling? What's going to be the best situation for him to stay sharp? But also, we'd love to give him a day off or 2. So I would definitely go to him and see what his feelings are. He knows his body better than anyone. And again, the games going forward, not really any kind of must-win situations. They don't have to force him into the lineup. They can really pick and choose what they want to do the rest of the way. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. As for the rest of the lineup, I could see Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty maybe getting a game off at some point before the end of the season. 2 veteran players play a ton of minutes in all situations. I would go to them, say, what do you guys feel comfortable with? If they have any little bumps and bruises, they think that they would benefit feeling better for the start of the playoffs by maybe taking that final game off against Chicago. I would absolutely let them do that. Akil Thomas has looked pretty good since joining the team, but a couple of guys are ready to come back. It looks like Alex Turcotte and Carl Grundstrom both could be returning soon. Turcotte was back at practice over the weekend and again today wearing the red non-contact jersey. That typically means that he's ready to come back sometime this week. And also Carl Grundstrom returned to practice today. And according to Kings Insider and friend of the show, Zach Dooley, Grundstrom obviously looks to be close to returning as well. Now, Zach didn't say in what I saw his post online today if Grundstrom was in the red jersey or not. But regardless, again, we were told he'd be back before the end of the regular season. And looks like that is the case, as he's been out several weeks with an injury. So to add Grundstrom to the roster, the Kings would have to make a roster move. I think the most logical one would be Alex Turcotte. He is waiver exempt, so he can go back to Ontario without clearing through waivers. Akil Thomas, I do not believe, is waiver exempt. So Turcotte, I believe, would be the likely player to go down. And then once the playoffs start, the roster opens up. You can add more players. The salary cap isn't involved, and they can call Turcotte back up or whoever they want to. So that will be very interesting to see what the Kings decide to do if and when Carl Grundstrom is ready to return. Don't know it'll be on Tuesday against the Ducks, and the same for Alex Turcotte. I do expect the Kings to stick with that 12-6 setup, the 12 forwards and the 6 defense we saw against Vancouver for the rest of the way, barring no other injuries that they have to deal with. And as far as the return of Phillip Danault, thought he looked solid in the reformation of the nice line along with Victor Arvidsson and Trevor Moore. As for Danault, he played 15 minutes and 13 seconds, a bit less than he's used to. He averages about 18 minutes of ice time per game, but I think that makes sense. His first game back, don't want to give him the same exact workload that he had, so they took a little bit of time off him, make sure he looked good. Certainly he looked great on that give and go pass with Trevor Moore for the Kings' 5th goal against Vancouver. Beautiful play. We've seen them do that a couple of times this year. And Danault assisting on Trevor Moore's 30th goal of the year. By the way, congratulations to Trevor Moore on hitting that 30-goal mark. Now we need to get Quentin Byfield one so he can get to 20 before the end of the season. He's been stuck on 19 for a while now. But great to see Trevor Moore hit that 30-goal mark as he's had a career year in scoring goals. But yeah, I think that the nice line certainly looks to stay together the rest of the way. I think that having Kevin Fiala and Pierre-Luc Dubois together on that third line certainly makes a lot of sense. And hopefully that will spark those two guys to have a good postseason the rest of the way. Mentioned Victor Arvidsson, and I didn't have time to bring it up on Friday when it was announced. We had a busy show, fan feedback and all that. But congratulations to Victor Arvidsson. He has been selected as the Kings nominee for the Masterton Trophy. If you're not familiar with that, it is the trophy that is awarded to the player who best exemplifies the qualities of perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. It typically goes to a player who's had some sort of off-ice issue, whether it's been an injury issue or maybe even a mental health or substance abuse issue, and has come back to play well. Obviously, with Victor Arvidsson, he's had the injury issues, missed most of the season with his second back surgery since he's joined the Kings. But he's come back, looked strong, looked great. Fingers crossed that he stays that way for the rest of the season and the postseason. But again, well-deserved for Victor Arvidsson. That award is the nominees are voted on by the Professional Hockey Writers Association. So the reporters in LA are the ones who nominate the players, and they nominated Victor Arvidsson. 13 games so far since coming back to joining the Kings. And I don't think there's any question, although his numbers aren't blowing you away, 2 goals and 7 assists. But there's his effect on the roster, I think, is evident. The energy he brings, that tenacity that he brings. He's kind of like Blake Lizotte with a little more skill. But Victor Arvidsson has been a great addition. Exactly what we were hoping for with him returning to the lineup and helping to spark the Kings. So congratulations to Victor Arvidsson being the Masterton Trophy nominee for the LA Kings. Every team gets a nominee, and then they have a vote and whittle it down to 3 finalists. So we'll see what happens with Victor Arvidsson and the Masterton Trophy. With the Kings on the verge of qualifying for the playoffs, where exactly are they sitting now in the Pacific Division standings? It has changed since our last show. And who could that first round opponent be? Plus, we have an Ontario rain report. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Drive, passion, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to turn your car into that MVP and bring home the win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. The LA Kings face the Anaheim Ducks, 7 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday night. The Kings can clinch a playoff spot with a win. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. Well, let's check in on the standings in the Pacific Division and the Western Conference playoff picture coming out of the weekend. When we last left you, the Kings were 1 point back of Vegas for third place in the Pacific and 7 points up on St. Louis for the final wildcard spot in the West. Vancouver, we mentioned, has already clinched a playoff spot, 102 points. Their only game was that loss to the Kings over the weekend. For Edmonton, they picked up wins over Colorado and Calgary, so 4 big points over the weekend for the Oilers, and they have 99 points in second place, and they have clinched a playoff spot. Then you have the LA Kings. They have moved back into third in the Pacific with 93 points, so if the playoffs started today, it would be Kings versus Oilers, but it may not stay that way. We'll give you the details on that in a moment. Nashville is the number one wildcard team in the West. They've got 94 points, one more than the Kings. They did lose to the Islanders over the weekend, but then came back and beat New Jersey to move back into that number one wildcard spot. After the Kings beat Vancouver, the Kings were actually not only in third place, but they had passed Nashville as well. But Nashville comes back and leapfrogs the Kings for the wild card. As far as Vegas goes, they are stuck on 92 points. They lost to Arizona. They allowed 6 goals in the third period, and they've got goalie injury issues again. So Vegas right now would be the number 2 wildcard team in the West. The Kings holding that third spot by 1 point on the Vegas Golden Knights. And then you got St. Louis, the one team on the outside looking in at a playoff spot. They lost to San Jose in overtime, and then they beat the Ducks in a shootout. So they're at 87 points. So right now, 5 points out of the final wildcard spot. They'll likely have to win out to be able to get a chance at a wild card spot. So not looking good for St. Louis. It appears, right, that as far as Pacific Division teams, it'll be Vancouver, Edmonton, LA, and Vegas in the playoffs. What order remains to be seen. Now, I mentioned if the playoffs started today, it would be Kings Oilers. But I have mentioned that I would love to see the Kings against the Vancouver Canucks in the first round. And that was before the win on Saturday. The Kings finished the season 3-0-1 against Vancouver head-to-head, and they just seem to match up well against the Canucks. They play with a lot of confidence against Vancouver. Now, there is a chance, and not a bad chance, that Vancouver could not win the Pacific Division. Edmonton, again, is right on their heels and playing better hockey right now than the Canucks. They're 3 points back of Vancouver. And if they catch the Canucks, that would put Vancouver in the second spot, LA probably in the third spot if we can win the games we're supposed to win. And that would mean Vancouver versus LA in the first round in the 2-3 matchup. As far as what's left for Vancouver and Edmonton, the Canucks have 5 games remaining. They do play Saturday in Edmonton in what could be the deciding game in the division. They've also got games against Vegas, Calgary, Winnipeg, and Arizona. So at least 4 of those 5 remaining games are pretty tough games for Vancouver. Edmonton has 6 games left, so they've got a game in hand on the Canucks, including that big head-to-head matchup. And the Oilers have a more favorable schedule. They've got the Coyotes twice. They've got the Sharks once, as well as a game against Vegas and Colorado. But again, that big head-to-head matchup Saturday against Vancouver could decide the division. So as much as we hate the Oilers, kind of rooting for Edmonton right now for them to pass Vancouver, win the division, and then the Kings would not have to see them in a first-round matchup. We would see the Canucks. That is, of course, if the Kings can maintain their hold on the third and stay in front of Vegas. But we talked about the Kings' schedule is extremely easy the rest of the way. So there is certainly a path for the Kings to meet up with the Canucks in a 2-3 matchup. Matter of fact, if I was betting on it right now, I think I would think that probably is going to happen, but we'll see. That's kind of the way it looks from the eye test, but things can happen. And again, if Vancouver can win that head-to-head game against Edmonton, that would go a long way in them maybe wrapping up the division. And I know that people will say, be careful what you wish for. You might remember last year, the Toronto Maple Leafs fans were chanting, "We want Florida," and they got Florida and they lost. So yeah, I get that, but I'm sorry. I still hope we play Vancouver. I think it's pretty obvious. Like I said, we match up well against them. I think there's no fear of playing those guys. Matter of fact, I know the Kings would never admit this, but I think if you ask the players, they would love to play Vancouver as well. So we'll see. Again, there is a path for it to happen, but we'll keep an eye on that, obviously, every day going forward and give you the latest as far as how the playoff picture is shaping up. As for games of interest tonight, there's one big one, and it's the Canucks hosting Vegas. And kind of hard to pick who you want to root for in this one because you don't want Vegas to catch the Kings for that third spot, but you also don't want Vancouver to extend their lead on Edmonton. So if I had to pick tonight, I think I would actually be rooting for Vegas because, like I said, I think the Kings, with their schedule the rest of the way, I think they can finish ahead of the Golden Knights. Vegas has a few tough games, but we need Vancouver to not extend their lead over Edmonton. So that's a tough one. But for me, I would be rooting for Vegas tonight against Vancouver, although that's even just saying that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Let's give you a quick Reign report. And the Kings AHL affiliate, the Ontario Reign, 2-0 this past week. On Wednesday, they beat the Henderson Silver Knights 5-4 in overtime. Ontario fell behind 2-0, rallied back to win. Samuel Fagemo continues his amazing season. 2 goals in this one, numbers 38 and 39 for him, including the overtime game winner. Hayden Hodgson, Andre Lee, and Colton Young had the other goals, and Aaron Dell got the win in net, allowing 4 goals on 33 shots. Saturday, the Reign beat the San Jose Barracuda 3-2 in a shootout. Ontario again fell behind 2-0, rallied back to tie it up. Francesco Pinelli and Andre Lee had the goals in regulation. Taylor Ward had the lone goal in the shootout game winner. Eric Portillo got the win in net for Ontario. He allowed 2 goals on 29 shots, and he stopped all 3 shooters he faced in the shootout. So Ontario is still in third place in the Pacific Division of the AHL. They have a record of 38, 21, and 7. They have clinched a playoff spot. They did that last week. They've got 6 games left in the regular season before the playoffs start, including 3 this week. Wednesday, they're at Coachella Valley. Friday, they host San Diego. And then Saturday, they are at Henderson. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Tuesday's show, may have a special guest. We'll have to wait and see, but we're definitely going to preview the Kings-Ducks game. Again, LA looking to get 2 points, win that game, and clinch a playoff spot. Wednesday, we'll obviously recap the Kings-Ducks game. Thursday, we'll preview Kings-Flames, and then Friday, recap that game, as well as having another Kings fan feedback show. The playoffs are fast approaching. It's an exciting time, and the Kings are starting to get on the right track. Just stay healthy going forward, and I think good things could happen for our LA Kings. At least that's the hope. I hope you'll be with us for the rest of the week. Should be a good week. If you want to get in on that Friday fan feedback show by sending an email, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. If you're watching on YouTube, we always love your comments in the comment section. It helps the algorithm. We appreciate that. Also would love you to stay connected with us on social media. We're on X, Twitter, and Instagram as well. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, go Kings go.